Well, hello and welcome to another video by Financial Learning. On today's video, we're going to be talking about the institutional ownership of these Bitcoin mining stock. We're going to be taking a look at 14 of these stocks. If you have a specific stock in mind, go ahead and check out the chapters and you can jump straight to that stock. Also, just remember that these institutional owners typically will lend out their shares for borrowing in order to maximize their potential profit and give them a little bit more diversification when it comes to some revenue. So when you're looking at the short interest percent of these same miners, you may see a little correlation between the institutional ownership and the overall available shares, as well as the percent of float being shorted. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, rounding out the bottom of our list, this is number 14. This is CANG. That is ticker symbol CANG. Before I read out some of the stats, just remember that this was a car company. Not too long ago, they just decided to pivot into the Bitcoin mining industry. So if you take a look at that institutional graph at the bottom left, you can see that it had a rather drastic drop off in terms of institutional ownership, and we haven't really seen anything showing any type of confidence as of yet from these institutions. But jumping into the stats, they have a total of 32 institutional holders for a total share count holding at 5,619,207 shares. And the percent of institutional long shares is just 1.89%. Coming in at number 13 on our list is BitFUFU, that is ticker symbol FUFU. If you take a look at the graph at the bottom left, you're going to see a slight increase in institutional ownership. Remember, that looks rather large, but you need to take a look at the left-hand side. That is the number of shares, and it is multiplied by 1,000. And if you want to take a look as well, what we're going to start with is going to be the number of institutional owners. They had a total of 14 institutional owners at the time of this information for a total share count at 2,891,625 shares. And the percent of institutional ownership in terms of long was 10.36%. Coming in at number 12 on our list is going to be BTDR, that is ticker symbol BTDR. Let's start with that graph. You can see a nice increase in the graph. Another thing I wanted to talk about in terms of looking at this graph that you need to be aware of is dilution. As the number of shares increase in terms of the common share count amount, the institutions have the opportunity to purchase additional shares in order to hold a certain percent of ownership of these stocks. So keep that in mind when you're looking. Just because you see an increase in institutional ownership does not always mean that they are increasing the overall percent. So that's very important to look at when you are looking at these institutional owners. Jumping into the stats here for BTDR, you can see they had a total of 123 institutional owners. Total institutional shares owned was 18,182,975 shares. Looking at the percent of long institutional shares, they had 18.29%. And you're going to see another percent as well. That is just the change of institutional ownership compared to the last update. So you can see that the institutional owners have increased their shares of BTDR by about 55.56% since the last update. All right, number 11 on our list, this is Bitfarms, that is ticker symbol BITF. Take a look at that graph down there. You can see an increase in institutional ownership of shares with just a slight decrease in the month of December. I want to also take a look at the institutional owner count. It is sitting at 195 for a total institutional shareholding of 96,283,832 shares. And looking at it from a percent standpoint, institutional shares long is 20.38%. And it is worth noting that this institutional share percentage is really just off of the 13F filing. You can see that excluding 13D/G. So if you do see a difference in the institutional long holding of share count at the top paragraph compared to what is next to that percentage, that is because of those excluded institutions according to the 13F versus adding in the 13D and G. Next up on our list is number 10. This is Iris Energy, ticker symbol IREN. Take a look at that graph at the bottom left. You can see a slight dip in the month of December for Iris Energy. And taking a look at the institutional ownership, there's 172 owners currently with 55,050,756 shares held long. Looking at the percent of shares held long compared to the common share count, it is at 25.68%. Coming in at number 9 on our list, that is going to be Hive Digital. That is ticker symbol HIVE. Taking a look at the bottom left at this graph, you can see that these bars do look a little skinnier, and that's because this company has been around since 2019. But taking a look a little bit closer at the 2024 year, you can see some slight step increases for the institutional ownerships of Hive Digital Technologies. Looking at the institutional owners, they have 108 currently holding their stock, and then they have 38,152,946 shares held long. Looking at that percent compared to their float, it is sitting at 28.84%. Coming in at number 8 on our list is going to be Core Scientific. That is ticker symbol CORZ. Looking at their graph, you can see it's just in 2024. Remember, they had a slight pause in their trading, but they are back as of 2024. And you can see the institutional ownership has been stepping up in the last few months compared to the beginning of the year. Looking at the institutional holder count, it is sitting at 407 different institutional owners, and the total shares owned is 190,771,923 shares. Looking at that as a percentage compared to the overall share count, it is sitting at 35.52%. Coming in at number 7 on our list, this is CIFR Mining. That is ticker symbol CIFR. And taking a look at their bottom left graph, you can see a nice increase, a rather large jump in the last 2 to 3 months, or the 2 to 3 last updated reportings for the number of shares being held. Looking at the institutional holder count, it is sitting at 325 for a total shares held long at 124,342,722 shares. Taking a look at that percent compared to their float, it is at 35.75%. Coming in at number 6 on our list is Bit Digital. That is ticker symbol BTBT. Taking a look at the bottom left of their graph, you can definitely see a nice step up in institutional shares owned. And it's worth noting that with all of these specific companies, you're going to see a jump up, and it is slightly correlated with that price of Bitcoin. As you all know, sometime between September, October, November, Bitcoin was starting to jump up, and we all know that it is trading around $100,000 per Bitcoin as of the time of this video. So taking a look at the institutional holders, they had a total of 234 holders for a total share count held at 67,599,381 shares. Looking at that percent compared to their overall share count, it is sitting at 44.04%. All right, coming in at number 5 on the list is CleanSpark. That is ticker symbol CLSK. If you take a look at their bottom left graph, you're going to see a nice steady step up that started back in December of 2020 and just continued to jump up basically quarter over quarter. As you all know, I am a fan favorite of CleanSpark. I do like the way that they keep their head down, that is that head down approach, and they are constantly looking at acquiring additional miners and looking at the right type of acquisitions based off of the efficiency and that operational excellence. But jumping into the institutional ownership, because that's what we're here for, folks, you can see they have a total of 447 institutional owners for a total shares owned at 133,206,880 shares. Taking a look at that percent compared to their share count, it is at 45.5%. Coming in at number 4 on our list is Riot Platforms. That is ticker symbol RIOT. Take a look at the bottom left there. You're going to see their institutional ownership of shares. It has been steadily increasing since back in 2020. You're going to see it is peaked out here in the month of December 2024 as Bitcoin pricing is at an all-time high as of the last month or so. So makes a lot of sense why you'd see a lot of these companies with the institutional shares hitting all-time highs. But let's take a look at some of these stats. Institutional holders, the count sitting at 477. Looking at the institutional share holdings, total amount of shares at 153,042,142. Taking a look at the institutional shares held long as a percent of their share count, it is at 46.03%. And number 3 on our list, this is TeraWulf, that is ticker symbol WULF. Looking at their bottom left graph, you're going to actually see a rather large jump and spike in institutional ownership starting back around the August 2024 period. And then from September till now, you see a nice pretty substantial jump, over 100% increase in share count for institutional ownership. Looking at the total number of institutional holders for TeraWulf, it is sitting at 406, and the total number of shares held by institutions is 192,877,655 shares. Taking a look at that in terms of a percent of their share count, it is at 49.9%. And coming in at number 2 on our list is HUT8. That is ticker symbol HUT. Looking at their bottom left graph, this one actually looks different than quite a bit of these other Bitcoin mining companies. And that's because around the month of April, they had a rather substantial drop in institutional ownership of their shares. So I think that's actually an interesting thing. It would be interesting to do a little bit more deep dive into exactly what occurred around that time period for HUT. If anyone knows, please drop that in the comments and let me know. I'm very curious myself. But taking a look at these stats, they have a total institutional holder count at 299. Their number of shares being held by institutions is coming in at 52,616,658 shares. Taking a look at that as a percent of their share count, it is at 56.17%. And coming in at number 1 on our list is Mara Holdings. That is ticker symbol MARA. Taking a look at their graph at the bottom left, again, much like a lot of these Bitcoin miners, they have, starting around the 2020-2021 period, they have a rather large increase in institutional share ownership. But again, remember, as I mentioned with one of these other companies, a lot of these Bitcoin mining stocks, they do use this shareholder equity in order to be able to raise additional money to purchase some additional miners, as well as continue to do some of these merger and acquisitions. So just remember that when you're looking at it, one of the more important numbers is going to be that percentage. But let's jump into the rest of the stats. Here at number 1 for Mara, they have a total institutional holder count at 632. Looking at the total shares held by these institutions, it's at 210,406,586. Looking at it as a percent of their overall share count, it is sitting at 65.54%. All right, and that wraps it up for me, folks. I hope you enjoyed this quick little update on the institutional ownership of these Bitcoin mining companies. If you had any of these that seemed like a surprise to you, or if you have a little bit more context into some of these, I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving this video a like, subscribe to Financial Ernie channel if you haven't already, and like I mentioned, drop some comments. Let me know your thoughts about this video. Let me know what other types of information, what other type of rankings would you like to see me cover in the future. And with all that said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.